Good evening and welcome to the September 22nd Town Board Work Session. Number 2 on the agenda then is to changes and approval of the agenda, and I have one change to the agenda, and that is to remove the proclamation for Breast Cancer Awareness Month from the consent agenda and add it as item 4A to the agenda and change 4A to 4B for the Triangle West presentation.
Move to approve the amended agenda. Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And item 3 on the agenda is a public hearing regarding closure of an unimproved, unopened portion of South Hazel Street.
I'll move to open the session.
Okay. Thank you, Kathleen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and Shannon.
I don't believe there's anyone here to speak on this item.
Okay. Is that clear? No one here to speak on that topic?
Yeah, I guess I could.
You don't have to, but you will be welcome to in just a moment.
Certainly, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Can you say relationship with the project?
Sure, my name is Paul Dennett. I'm a homeowner, one of 2 homeowners. At this location, we do share this, what is currently, South Hazel Street, with a neighbor. We're seeking to close this because, it is essentially a shared driveway. We have never had any, town, maintenance on this, including when Hurricane Chantal wiped out this area. So we're hoping that we can simply allocate this land to our neighbor and ourselves, and we will indeed have a driveway easement as well. Any further questions?
Questions from the board?
None.
Thank you. Anyone, last chance, anyone else here to speak? It's a public hearing. Okay, Shannon, is there anything you want to add?
No.
I think we're all pretty familiar with it. Okay, ready to close the public
Move
hearing?
to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Megan. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there a consensus from the board on how to proceed on this?
Oh, no, no.
Oh, we don't have that now, sorry. Yeah, that comes later.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, now on to number 4, presentations, and we will begin with a proclamation for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So do we have some people here to receive this proclamation? Stand up here. Okay, whereas National Breast Cancer Awareness Month is an annual campaign to increase awareness of the disease and increase public knowledge about the importance of early detection of breast cancer diagnosis and treatment. And whereas 1 in 8 women and 1 in 833 men will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. And whereas an estimated 320,000 people in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer in 2025. And whereas the American Cancer Society recommends annual breast cancer screening with mammograms starting at age 40. Early detection saves lives, so schedule your mammogram today. 15 minutes could save your life. Whereas the American Cancer Society started making strides against breast cancer, the nation's largest and most impactful breast cancer movement, providing a supportive community for courageous breast cancer survivors and metastatic breast cancer survivors, caregivers, and families alike. And whereas many organizations continue to search for cure through vital research, and physicians, public health professionals, and advocates continue to educate our community about awareness and innovative advancements in early detection and treatment. And whereas the Hillsborough Board of Commissioners supports breast cancer research and recognizes trauma breast cancer brings and understands that this horrible disease strikes women and men within the Hillsborough community. Whereas the town of Hillsborough is committed to raising breast cancer awareness by illuminating town facilities throughout the month of October, and Whereas the Ellsworth Police Department will don pink badges throughout the month of October. Now therefore, I, Mark Bell, Mayor of the town of Hillsborough, do hereby proclaim October 2025 as Hillsborough as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the town of Hillsborough. You witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand across the seal of the town of Hillsborough to be affixed this 22nd day of September of the year 20.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really.
Moving on to. There's now 4B, Triangle West Transportation Planning and Organization Updates and check-ins with Hillsborough with Doug Lachinsky, the Executive Director. Welcome, Doug.
Good evening. I'm so glad you're doing that, not me. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me a few moments to speak during your commission meeting tonight. My name is Doug Lachinsky. I've been the executive director at Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization for about 3 years. Going to cover 3 quick topics tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we're at in terms of our strategic planning and organization assessment with some highlights. I'm going to talk a little bit about our long-range transportation plan, which we collaborate with the capital area MPO, our brethren agency to the east that includes Raleigh. And then I'm going to sum up with a little bit about an updated memorandum of understanding between our communities that comprise our membership at Triangle West. I should call this version. All right, so new year, new us. At the beginning of 2025, we unveiled a new brand and a new name. Previously, we were formerly known, we were the MPO formerly known as the Durham Chapel Hill Carrboro Metropolitan Planning Organization, which if you don't know what that is, doesn't tell you what it is, right? So it also didn't include a nod to our identity and our members collectively. It really just singled out the 3 biggest municipalities, and that didn't feel great to us. We really want to make sure that we're including everyone in our membership area and our planning area. We also really focused on not just the name, but the rest of what we do and the look and the feel of it. Carrboro Creative came on board and prepared a design package for us that we're using in our presentations, our stationery. Our website has been overhauled. Really changed everything from top to bottom. There will still be some things that we have to get up to speed on that, but we are working at it. And just, it came up already tonight. It's always Triangle West and never TwitPub. Never ever TwitPub. Just kidding. Whatever. So I mentioned our strategic plan and organization assessment. When I came on board, the organization had not adopted a strategic plan. We adopted a governance study, maybe talk about, better ways to organize our committees and our boards, but we had navigated our work with the idea that we'll know what we like when we see it, but we can't articulate it yet because we just don't know. So I wanted, and our board wanted to really formalize that understanding. So we embarked on this strategic planning effort. We hired a consultant that came on board. And we came up with 6 core values, kind of 6 overarching principles that we want to make sure that are included in as much of our work as possible, and those are here on the screen. I don't think they're a surprise to anyone. We would like to be known collectively as really always prioritizing safety, but certainly these are all very important to us. Now, out of those core values, we've got a lot of things that we do. And at a real high level, annually, we have a recurring grant that we apply for. It's not, in the past, it was not organized very well. It was hard to read from that grant application that gets approved what it is we do. Because it just was a bunch of jargon and bureaucracy and planning nerd stuff. So we taking those values, tried to align focus areas for our work around them. And ways that we could potentially create metrics out of this so that we can come back and report on changes and progress systemically. State of good repair for infrastructure. I think there's a bridge in Hillsborough that we're working on with Stephanie. So we know what infrastructure condition looks like to us. The required functions we had being a federally created and designated agency, which now more than ever change from day to day. It's pretty disrupted space. We want to make sure that we are strongly working with all of our partners. We want to have a better handle on what's going on in Raleigh and in DC for our information to know and to better anticipate so that we can be nimble for our members and try to advance policies that benefit the Western Triangle. We always want to be part of broad community engagement and including everyone at the table. I think that that's just kind of a core value for the whole area, right? I mean, I grew up in Durham, and Carrboro, and I feel like that's a very important thing here. And then lastly, transportation system resiliency. I'll mention that because a lot of people think of resiliency only around natural disasters. Resiliency is really meaning to bounce back from any disruption. So in order to have a resilient transportation system, you have to have resilient transportation planning, which means we have to be prepared for being disrupted in our work too. We're presenting some draft documents tomorrow at our board meeting to go over the additional organizational assessment, kind of filling in some of the gaps that we currently have in our program with some suggestions on maybe where we'd like to be in 3 years and examining some other improvements. Our work's really cut out for us. We've got plenty of things to do. And I really want to stress this. We want to do it in a way that provides an incredible value to our members, both in the work that we provide, but then in the contributions that you all make to us so that we're able to operate, because we do operate off a non-federal match that's provided proportionally by all of our members. And that's we want to really make sure that we're acknowledging how important that is. So enough about strategic plan, and I'm probably dragging on a little bit longer than I usually do, so I'll get going faster. Talk about our some more things that we're doing this year. The IIJA unwinding in Washington and has created a lot of opportunities. We don't know what the federal landscape is going to look like. We are trying to maintain an understanding of it. You have everything from increases to funding resources for things like public transportation to zeroing out those same resources in different versions of proposals of the same legislation. We're trying to reconcile all that and of course advocate for letting decisions be made at the local level to the extent we can, and keeping that power here. We are working on a lot of things more than ever. The map on the screen is a conceptual rail trail from downtown Durham to Roxborough. We will be moving forward, supporting the state of North Carolina buying this railroad corridor over the next year or so. The environmental work for that's necessary for the purchase is underway now for the phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessments. It's very exciting. It's an unused rail corridor. This is an example of engaging with partners like our neighbors to the north in Person County and the Carter Council of Governments that we don't traditionally engage with all the time. So it's one example of the things that we can do together. And this leads into our long-range transportation plan, which the link is on the screen. As I alluded to, we prepare this document and conduct the work in collaboration with the Capital Area MPO. We have worked through a lot of it so far, but I want to stress that when we start out, not only do we set goals and objectives, but there's a massive technical evaluation that's going on in the background, where we have computer models that have been developed over the past 60 years that can predict how traffic flows. The foundation for those models are land uses and policies. Things like zoning density, housing density, jobs density. Who makes those decisions? You guys do. What can you build where, and how does it look, and how does it feel? That is everywhere across the country what local governments do, and those decisions are here at your table. We take all that information, working with your staffs. We have a huge model that covers portions of 10 counties. That's very granular with parcel specific data. And we, in the background, start evaluating different alternatives, mostly focused around traffic congestion. So it's not always ideal for everything, but we do begin to understand the impacts of different policy decisions and different transportation investments in our highway network. So that's going on in the background while we look at other things like safety problems, non-motorized gaps in the system, et cetera, public transportation expenditures from the 3 county transit plans and those half-cent sales taxes. And then we work through some alternatives, and we do loop back into some land use policy alternatives, as in what would happen if we increase density in transit supportive areas to try to get more people living where they can access mass transit. We came up with some preferred options in June. We're going to be presenting our preferred option for public release tomorrow to get feedback, and then by November we'll be adopting, knock on wood, adopting that preferred alternative and releasing for air quality conformity checks, which is part of our requirements. An example of some model outputs. Some of the data with projections. So we were able to project socioeconomic data and household populations. These are controlled by estimates from the North Carolina State Demographer's Office. We're not out making up new things. We're relying on their expertise, because if you guys, planners are nerds, demographers are even extra enigmatic in that way. So this, I think, shows some of the changes we're looking at. Note that the jobs and the populations don't correlate. So we have more jobs coming to parts of this region than we do household populations increase. So that means people coming for the economic activity here are not living here. They're living outside. They're living in Alamance. They're living in Randolph counties and commuting in, because we're not able to keep up with the housing supply. And I think that's a really significant takeaway. So that's the long range plan. I want to touch up real quick before I wrap this on the hopeful memorandum of understanding update. 4 things I'd like to, well, 3 things really I'd like to see accomplished with that. One, we have municipalities and counties that are our members. The way we collect those member contributions is municipalities pay for everyone inside their corporate limits. So if you're in Hillsborough, the town is paying for you. If you're outside of a corporate limit, then the counties are paying for you. The counties represent more than just the people who live outside the cities, right? The towns, they also represent everybody inside. Well, when we get to the decision-making table, that has created some angst because we've got an economic contribution to the process that's based on only constituents that live outside the community. And some of our county commissioners, not in Orange County necessarily, but they wrestle with, well, am I representing people in a rural unincorporated area, or am I representing everybody? And most of the people in Orange and Durham counties live in incorporated areas. So we'd like to try to rebalance not just the financial obligations, but also the responsibilities to acknowledge that population distribution. Of course, this is a year where county budgeting will be every bit as difficult, if not more, than municipal budgeting as you move on. So we'll negotiate through that and hopefully come to a resolution, or we'll keep things the way they are, which is also perfectly fine. I'm anticipating a lot of updates to required clauses and things that we have to do, in addition to things that may come out of reauthorization discussions that maybe we can anticipate, so that we don't have to come back to you again in a year. Well, that would be ambitious, but after the new laws are passed, to ask you to update again. The last thing is the federal regs say that we have to have a public transportation representative on our board. And that has been Go Triangle for a long time. But Go Triangle is not the only public transportation provider across our area. So we'd like to make sure that all of the voices are heard. And it's not just operators, it's communities like Hillsborough and Carrboro that don't operate their own system, but sponsor operations in their community, so that they're able to meet as a small group and elect a voice amongst themselves and bring that voice to the broader discussion solely on public transportation, to make sure that perspective's there and it's balanced and it rotates around so that everybody can get involved. Hoping that all this, we can get to some consensus, and then I'll be back asking for all of the communities to update their sign off by the end of this current fiscal year for the changes to go into effect in the 27 fiscal year. So thank you very much for entertaining me. I did run on a little long, and not entertaining me, entertaining my presentation. I did run on a little long. Here's my email address. I appreciate you very much. If you have time, if anybody wants to remark or ask a question, I'd be happy.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate you coming here and sharing kind of those updates. And I've said this many times before in other settings that as the representative to TPO, that the work that the TPO does is so much more complicated and intricate than many of the other assignments that we do, that it takes a great deal of effort just to keep up with understanding of all the moving parts and the different counties and municipalities and their interdependencies. So that's a tough assignment for you as the executive director of that organization. So thank you for doing that. I'd like to open it up if board members have any questions. I see Kathleen has her hand raised.
I do. Thank you for the presentation. I have several. One of the things is that, less than 1/5 of Metro, MPOs, RPOs actually account for housing or integrate with housing. Fewer than 19% of organizations across the country. And that is a problem. One of the things that with Triangle West, the opportunity we have being with the COG is breaking down those silos. Critically important because when you look at the top metropolitan areas and the regional councils across the country, the most successful have a very tightly integration of COG, MPO, RPOs together, which makes sense. And you hit on those points: land use policy, density, housing, the transportation, the economics. You just can't tease them apart. So, with this destination 2055, I just want to raise the point that it's going to be critically important that there is integration and tight collaboration for the regional vision 2050, so that we don't have the silos. Right now we do. We know, for example, the data model, which one of the things that in this region we're working on is regional housings that provide much better regional planning, allowing for cross jurisdictional collaboration, go after larger grants, but especially for those housing parcels where they are adjacencies. So we're not having municipalities or local governments competing. That data model, my understanding and my first question is to confirm, or my understanding is it's housed at NC State in that it's not actually owned by Triangle West or the COG. Is my understanding accurate or inaccurate?
It is a collaboration of 4 funding partners that are North Carolina Department of Transportation, Campo, and Triangle West. It is housed at NC State, but is publicly accessible to anyone.
Okay, so it being housed at NC State, and this may be a conversation offline, is that data, can that be utilized so that there can be layers so that when we, rather than duplicating effort for regional housing or even some of the other pieces of the comprehensive 2050 regional plan. So we're not reinventing data, that we can pull in that data into the regional data center.
Absolutely. There is data available. It's housed in I'm not the expert at this, but it's housed in an accessible portal. It tracks changes and creates metadata that's assigned to those changes and who's changed it and when and what those changes are. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that's the regional travel demand model. The community biz modeling is housed in Triangle.
This is
Central
more
Pines.
than the demand model. You know, what you're speaking
Right.
about is, and not so much accessing a portal, but actually the underneath data engine is being able to access that. And again, if this is a conversation offline, that's fine.
No, as I mentioned, the underpinning socioeconomic and land use data,
Mhm.
we actually contract with Central Pines to develop that for this process. So that, I mean, what we use as the foundation of that part of the model that's at NC
Okay.
State is actually work that CPRC
Fantastic.
does. So that should all be there. If it's not, I can make sure that they know that they're welcome to access it how they see fit.
Yes, thank you. That would be critically important, going back to housing. So I do chair the Regional Housing Committee. As you know, that we are trying to bring transportation in because I saw your values, but again, one of the failures, and it's across, we have siloed transportation and housing, and the bottom line, people trade off housing costs, transportation accessibility. And we need better planning, which requires that integration. So I would just want to take this opportunity that as you're working on the transportation and the nuts and bolts of infrastructure, planning, safety, that we break down some of those silos. I had one other piece, I think.
While you're looking for that, I appreciate you bringing that up. I think we'd probably be happy to come and present some of our test alternatives that we ran that talks about housing and jobs density to the regional housing subcommittee. I think what we would find particularly interesting is to move the needle on actually benefits the kinds of density we need to talk about according to the model.
Right.
Models are all wrong. Some of them are just useful.
Exactly.
But to actually move the needle would be some exponential changes to the way our communities are built and feel. So I think I think that's good information for the housing.
That's
committee to have.
fantastic, because that scenario planning is important, and ultimately, the vision is to give a tool that will allow for scenario planning, not only for planners, but developers, policymakers, because we're all in this together. So I will stop right now.
Thank you, Kathleen. I can tell you that sitting in on so many of those conversations, that's absolutely central part of the models that are being developed. And if anybody wants to know have the best crystal ball you can about where we're growing and why and under what circumstances. It's the transportation planning model that is responsible for figuring out how to connect all those dots together. It's kind of like the secret sauce of understanding regional planning and growth projections and
Absolutely.
housing, all those things, even healthcare too. So it's-
Well, they, in fact,
Very much
other
so.
metropolitan areas, whether it's Lehigh Valley or you go to Columbus or you go to Atlanta Metro, or there's several amazing what they're doing that is challenging it is behind the scenes from where they were and where they are. And it's something that I'm pretty passionate about. Right hand, left hand, welcome to one another.
Thank you. Any other questions, Rob?
No, I just want to say, thank you, Doug, appreciate it. I like the new branding and the new things that, changes that you made, look forward to, future success.
I'll probably see you all back here after the new year to talk about getting that MOU in. I will be visiting all of our members to work something that will. Go ahead.
Hey, hang on before you ask another question. Megan, do you have a question?
No questions in particular, actually. I think the thing that I noticed would be more of Stephanie when she comes to her portion of the presentation today. But along the lines that Kathleen is speaking about, when I look at the 2055 MTP map, like that's the one thing that has hit me also is the housing. When you see all of these widening all around Hillsborough, right there, it just shouts that we're gonna need to really pay attention to what we allow for housing.
Thank you. And Evelyn, do you have any questions for Doug?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kath?
You mentioned the issue with the member dues, and I'm kind of surprised to hear this because I know at the COG, it's the same issue. And yet it's not really an issue. So meaning county but we made policy decisions so that county, they pay only for outside of the municipalities. I'm kind of curious, and again, that may be an offline conversation, why not adopt the same model so there's consistency between the organizations? Is there funding?
There are different dynamics in our 3 counties than the broader 7 counties, the
Okay.
regional council, and much fewer municipalities. Most of the other counties have more municipalities than we have here in Durham, Orange, and Chatham.
Okay,
You know, Chatham's kind of unique. We only are in Chatham County. And again, I don't think it's going to be a stark transformation, but more of an acknowledgement that, hey, the county representatives are representing everyone within the county. Not just the people that live outside the municipal boundaries, in addition to the municipalities representing their constituents.
well, that's an interesting governance because what happens when there's a difference between the municipal and the county? How do they? That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Well, it would be the same disagreement if it happens.
Interesting. So that's all.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. If no other questions, thank you, Doug. We appreciate your time and look forward to the MOU discussion later this year.
Awesome. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna turn it.
While Sarah is doing that, moving on to number 5 on the agenda, appointments. Molly, you're welcome to make any comments. If not, I'll just go ahead with the 2 things. We have a recommendation for appointment of Carrie Winkler for a partial term to the planning board ending September 30th, 2026.
I'll move to approve the appointment of Carrie Winkler.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then we have a correction regarding the September 8th, 2025 appointment of Sankop Rangi to the Board of Adjustment. And I'm going to read the summary, and the Board of Commissioners appointed this person to the Board of Adjustment as an in-town regular member at our September 8th meeting, but this person was actually an alternate to in-town, an alternate in-town member. So we should have appointed this person as an alternate.
Oh,
That's wrong. So do we need a motion to correct that, or is it just understood? Okay, Shannon's nodding her head yes.
move to appoint Sankop Rangi as the alternate member, alternate in-town representative to the Board of Adjustment.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen.
Yes, Evelyn seconded.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And on to the modified consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and moving right along to number 7, in-depth discussion topics. The first item is an order to close an unimproved, unopened portion of South Hazel Street, which related to public hearing that we held earlier.
Yeah, so this is the third but not final step, but it's the last step for you all in this process, according to the general statutes. So there is an order that we would need a motion and a vote on in order to close the right of way. The next step, which is in the abstract, would be that the petitioner would have to file a plat to legally record that right of way as being closed, and then to also record the access easement for themselves and the neighbor, as well as the 20-foot sanitary sewer easement that we had discussed with utilities. So that information.
Something, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Something you said, so the, triggered a question, so the person that petitioned it will pay for the change of both properties. Tax.
Or they can split it with their neighbor.
Okay.
But that's a civil matter between
Yeah.
those two property owners.
Use the town's not.
The town.
No,
does not
I
pay
just-
for it.
It was more like, oh, I didn't realize that that's how it worked. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for clarity, the motions needed is just to close, is that we move to close?
Adopt the
To
order.
adopt the order.
Adopt the order, okay, I'll move to adopt the order to close the right of way pursuant to the general statutes 168-299.
Thank you, Kathleen. Is there a second? Okay, thank you, Evelyn. Is there any more discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Chef. Good luck. One more step to go and then you're all done. Thank you. And the next item is item B, annexation interest letter for an unaddressed parcels on Oakvale Drive. Oh.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Tonight we have an annexation interest letter for 2 unaddressed parcels off of Oakdale. The interested party is TMTLA Associates. And this would be a voluntary contiguous request. So that means it's adjacent to current town limits. So it wouldn't be in the satellite. Together, the properties total 14.13 acres in area just about, and they're both zoned R20. So it's a residential zoning district with a 20,000 square foot minimum lot size. And the applicant is interested in developing a 16 lot residential subdivision. So rezoning wouldn't be necessary. The zoning is already appropriate. We're just looking at annexation so that they could receive water and sewer service. And in that vein, the applicant's engineer has been in contact with engineering services, and staff anticipates being able to serve the project, assuming certain improvements are made at the developer's expense. And planning staff recommends allowing the applicant to proceed with the formal annexation petition. The zoning is already adequate for what they want to do. The property, it also matches what's on the future land use map, and the property is within the recommended urban service boundary. And with that, Pam Porter with TMTLA is here. If you guys have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them for you.
Great, thank you, Mel.
Mhm.
Rob, can we start on your side? Any questions?
I don't have any questions, so I'm curious though what sort of, and I assume they're utility improvements, but what sort of improvements will require of the.
Here comes Brian. Yeah.
Yes, hello. So the, on Rhonda Road, there is an existing sanitary sewer pump station. This development will need to do a gravity outfall extension to tie into the existing gravity sewer network and the Gatemore community that then drains that station. The developer has offered to proffer a certain amount of money to facilitate the upgrade of the existing pump station with slightly larger pumps to be able to handle the additional flow that comes from this development. Thank you, Brian.
Um. Yeah, so that was one of my questions, and I just wanted to make an observation that, as you said, it's an annexation, it's not a change in use for the land. I have received one contact from a citizen representing a nearby neighborhood who has concerns, and I encourage them to attend this meeting to learn about the project. And if it proceeds forward, then to attend the next step of the process, which would be a joint public hearing and then action by the planning board, and then ultimately the town board over the next several months or maybe even longer. I don't know. And my only comment in that regard was that if this is truly in keeping with our comprehensive sustainability plan, that a lot of their concerns would be addressed, because our plan requires certain things like stormwater runoff, things like that.
That's correct.
And also assume that any new addition is gonna have curb and gutter with the stormwater management program. So I don't have any other questions or observations. Thank
No, nothing to add.
you. Kathleen?
Yeah, the only thing I had was, I knew that there were concerns about the stormwater runoff and the, retention pond and, the Magnolia,
Off of Magnolia
Yes,
Place at the
yeah.
similar infill project that came through.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know, and that is, and I mean, I don't know, is it too early to talk about that, but is that,
And we talked through that with that other application as well, is that when Magnolia Place was going in, the standards were different than they are now. And so the development of a public road would be needed for this project, just like with that other one that we dealt with. And that disturbance alone would trigger the need for a stormwater management plan. So, hearing the concerns of the people at that previous public hearing, obviously, what they did not want was somebody else's stormwater careening into their pond, right? And essentially that would not be the case.
I didn't expect that, but I wanted to make sure
Sure.
that we were not, that was on the radar.
Of course, yeah.
And the other parcels, just to verify, they're also residential.
Yes.
Because I have had some conversations with some commercial developers that had wanted to get, that having those multiple parcels together would have been actually potential commercial neighborhood services commercial. I'm a little bit. I'm on the fence because I see that, it would give another little bit, a commercial services node. But I can see that, what the surrounding area being residential also, but I don't want us to lose sight that I don't know how, and Shannon, you might know, because I don't know how serious the inquiries are about the commercial viability. Like I said, I've had some developers. Yeah, I call them just nosing.
It's tire kicking.
A lot of
Yeah.
Yeah.
For this particular location,
Yeah,
I think
for
that commercial, just because of the site is pretty narrow.
No, they wanted to look at the viability, they want all of those parcels, not one, they would have to purchase all
Oh,
of
they
them.
would have to do an assemblage.
Yeah,
That may take a while. And there's also, I don't know, I think that probably, where'd Brian go? Isn't there some sewer pump issues in this area?
Yes.
There's a lot of topography. Oakdale is very hilly.
yeah,
And so trying to get the gravity sewer to serve a substantial commercial development may be challenging here, but I'm gonna let the experts speak on that.
So we are looking at some options as part of our, an RFQ, we actually have posted right now to try to have a broader perspective on being able to serve the whole basin with sewer. And have potentially even come back with project idea where they, the town extends it, and then as you connect to it, you pay us back. But that's still, that program's still in its infancy, but that's what we'd like to do, is look at things collectively out here, so we don't get these piecemeal
Yeah.
additions to our sewer system, because what you wind up with is a bunch of pieces of a sewer system that we then have to maintain, so.
exactly.
I would also say that, if we are gonna
look at commercial in this general area, where we probably would focus that is getting this final parcel
Amen.
developed at Oakdale.
Amen.
And then we do have the opportunity for redevelopment. There's a lot of older houses that have been, have used adaptive reuse to
Mhm.
turn them into law offices. And I think there's a dog training
Mhm.
facility down there, but those are aging homes versus commercial structures. So we could potentially see the redevelopment of this area as well. Generally, your businesses are gonna want all that pass-by traffic on 86. Not to say that Oakdale doesn't get a fair amount of traffic too. And this intersection is signalized, but this one is still a three-way stop. So it
Yeah,
would be
no.
challenging to load more traffic onto this three-way stop without, potentially future needing a light or something here.
Yeah, I think again, that the nose, I'm gonna call it the nosing. Is some of the hypothetical, it sounded like relatively low traffic, but more, larger light industrial type, but again, they were talking about the assemblage. I hadn't envisioned the part because I am spatially challenged from that standpoint.
Definitely
Well-
next question. How long ago was that? Recently?
I would say 8 months. I mean, not too, not,
And have you had any inquiries along those lines?
Not on
since?
okay, so
Probably just knows that.
again, that's why I said it was nosing and,
Good call.
but it did trigger my radar of, oh, if one person's thinking about it, usually more than one person's thinking about it, but to what extent? I don't know.
Any other questions?
None right now.
Evelyn, do you have any questions about whether this should proceed to the public, joint public hearing process?
Thing I'm concerned about, if you talk about commercial, ha-
If they were,
if it were, how far would that be from where we have developed along Oakdale and, 86?
Mhm.
Because it hadn't had a heck of.
It's right down, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So if you look here, like where my mouse is on the screen, that's where Oakdale and Old
Okay,
86
if you
and
have
then the
that
blue.
there and then you've got commercial, we've had an awful, if you go through commercial,
Mhm.
we've had a terrible, I've had a terrible time with that, trying to get that developed.
amen.
And that
Right.
hasn't turned out all that well. There's something that's an ABC store.
Mhm.
So, but it would not, to me, if it's gonna be residential, it would be I don't know that it would be that I would but if it were gonna be, it would fit better for residential than I wouldn't want to see commercial of
And
any sort.
yeah, and this applicant is proposing residential.
And they're talking about no density, just single family homes, more of the same. I'm not crazy, but if we're gonna do it, I'm,
Yeah, and the density would, for, if you have more density in houses, then that's just gonna make it, well, it sort of takes away from the character of the land, to me. And it would just make it if you talk about the houses on the other side, that would bother them more. I wouldn't be excited about residential either.
Is that Ronda Road R10 or is it R20?
Or 20.
Okay. Looks like as we move further east. On Oakdale, it gets smaller.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it gets into more like recently with that infill that we did a few months ago, they rezoned to R10.
Remember, we're not approving anything here tonight,
No.
we're just saying we're interested enough to go on to hear the application on annexation.
Any other questions?
You need a motion, you just need a.
Yeah, if we could get a motion to allow the applicant to proceed with a formal annexation application.
I move to allow the applicant to proceed with an annex application.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Megan. Any more discussion?
so for annexation. It's just annexation, it's not actual land use.
Right,
No
yeah.
change.
No
Yes,
change.
yeah.
Okay.
You're just putting it into town, but you're not saying what you're gonna put.
Yeah,
on
yeah,
it.
I just wanted to clarify,
Yeah, I know. We have the same concern.
Okay, ready for the question? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Stephanie Trooper. Updates on transportation projects and plans. Site future priority.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to make this fun. That transportation planning fun. I'm trying for laughs tonight. Everyone stretch, get ready. Transportation, man, this is a hard topic to make fun. But that is my goal. We keep everyone awake. I'm gonna try to move quickly, but I got a lot of information. Yeah, handy. That's right. Pass that around. I know myself, everyone's gonna need some sugar here. All right, so. Crazy and hard for me to believe that it was 4 years ago that I was here for a September workshop to determine what the transportation priorities were for the town. I thought it was like last year or maybe the year before, but I went back into my town board folders on my computer, and it's been 4 years since we set the transportation priorities that were then incorporated into the comprehensive sustainability plan. So it's time for us to do a check-in. Just kind of want to update you on all the projects that are going on, answer questions, and then talk about a few opportunities I may have, but really this item is just intended for me to share what's in my brain with y'all and see if y'all have questions about all of the projects that are going on. So hang tight. We're going to review the priorities. We're going to provide updates on the projects and plans as they progress since our last check-in. In the end, I would like to ask you to identify the priorities. Let me know if they're still relevant. And then look at the opportunities as I discussed to see if you want us to follow up on those things. Okay, here we go. All right, I'll just do it that way. Okay, so before we get started, quick refresher on the comprehensive sustainability plan, especially chapter 6, which is transportation and connectivity. First of all, the definition of sustainability is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The comprehensive sustainability plan establishes our collective vision for the future of Hillsborough to accurately inform our decision-making processes regarding growth and development. Remember that the comprehensive sustainability plan is really our should-do plan. It contains all of the recommendations of things we should do if we can. Whereas our strategic plan is our shall-do plan. That's what really directs staff to work on certain projects, plans, policies. Comprehensive sustainability plan has like a 15, 20-year horizon, whereas our strategic plan is 0 to 3 years. You get more regular updates on that plan's progress, and then we also revisit that strategic plan a lot more frequently. So the recommendations in the comprehensive sustainability plan were filtered through the lens of sustainability, and they relied on the themes that you guys and our community identified of equity, affordability, safety, connectivity, and health. The goal of chapter 6, which is transportation and connectivity, is to develop and maintain a safe and efficient and sustainable multimodal transportation system, which includes, of course, bike and ped and transit options, offering alternatives to single occupancy vehicle trips and promoting health and access to area jobs, destinations, and services. So this is all in line with what Doug was talking about, in line with what you guys were talking about with housing. This is really the transportation component of a smart growth model. We are aiming for transit oriented, right? That's density, multimodal, accessible, that's community, and a safe system. We want to promote alternatives to the single occupancy vehicles, Even recognizing that we're gonna have more cars on the road 10, 15, 20 years from now than we do now, but we want people to have options, as many options as are possible. We want to reduce the conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians and connect our neighborhoods to area destinations. Transportation is a regional system. This is not a problem that we can serve locally. So we have to continue to work with our partners, which of course include the MPO, NCDOT, Department of Transportation, and of course Orange County, and our transit providers. So these are some of the maps from our comprehensive plan. Just want to give you that little background so you can remember where some of these projects, grew out of. The first map forecasts future congestion. So this is the increasing traffic on our roadways. You can see that the hot spots, which are kind of the yellow, orange, red areas, are mostly 70 corridor, Churton, 86 north of town, looks rough, and the interstates. The knowledge of this impending traffic congestion on the roadways reinforces the need for us to build alternative transportation and transit networks, or to modernize our roadways to incentivize multimodal activity and alternatives to driving, while also recognizing the need that some of the geometry and actual design of our roadways also needs to be upfitted for that traffic congestion that is coming. And light signalization, signage, other components of the transportation system also need updating from time to time. The map on the right shows the bike and pedestrian crashes in town between 2011 and 2020. You can see the high danger zones are again along 70 and Churton. You can also see some on Orange Grove, West Hillsborough, Fairview. You'll remember that we adopted a Vision Zero resolution last year, which pledges the town's intention to reduce or eliminate, traffic deaths and serious injuries entirely by 2040. So again, safety and reducing conflicts and giving people ways to move around throughout town without taking their lives in their hands is like one of the key components. And I just want to point out the bike and ped crashes map is a little misleading sometimes, because you may wonder why you don't see more crashes, for instance, on 70A. That's because people don't walk there, because it's literally so unsafe that people don't walk there. They would rather walk through the woods probably, or go far around and about. They can also, take Riverwalk over to Elizabeth Rady Road. So when you have an alternative, you don't see as many crashes on those spaces. But 70A is certainly an area where if people were walking along that roadway, they would in danger. Also, in the CSP, you see our sidewalk and greenway trail and network maps. The sidewalk map, which is on the left, includes our existing conditions as well as recommendations for future sidewalks. The heavy black lines on that map show the existing sidewalk network. The red lines on the map indicate places where the town recommends sidewalks in the future. And the orange lines are sidewalk recommendations outside of our town limits, but in areas that may be annexed, but may also just be Orange County areas, and within our ETJ that need to have some form of connectivity. We have kind of some of these donut holes in towns or key destinations like the schools, which even if our town limits never reach there, we really need to be from a Vision Zero and a complete streets model, thinking about how to make sure that there's connectivity out there in the sidewalk network. The greenway and trail map, which is on the right side, shows our existing greenways and trails as well as our future recommendations, including the big one, which is Ridge Walk. We'll come back to that in a little bit. You see some smaller trail recommendations in that map too. And these maps that I'm showing you contain a lot of the data and have guided a lot of the recommendations for projects that we see pushing forward in the prioritization process. So from the Comprehensive Sustainability Plan, these were the priorities we identified 4 years ago and then carried through in the plan 2 years ago when it was adopted. First was the NC 86 and Orange Grove Road Connector studies. That project has been called different things at different times. The studies are complete and we do have preferred alignments. The South Churton Street multimodal study was a key priority in the comprehensive plan. That study is now complete and we're continuing our coordination with DOT. Ridge Walk Phase 1 and 2 feasibility study is now complete, and we have preferred alignment selected. Future train station, of course, engineering is still underway. We'll come back to these projects in a minute too. But I just wanted to cover the studies and where we are with that. We've finished our electric vehicle suitability model. We have adopted a complete streets resolution. We've adopted a Vision Zero resolution, and we've now completed the downtown parking study, which I think you just received at your last meeting. In terms of regulations that we're working on, the UDO rewrite is in process now, and the street standards are also being updated. So these are all things in the comprehensive plan that were identified as priorities. We're making progress, is the point of this slide. I'm going to go through each of those projects just to remind you what they are now. Back in 2020, the town developed the Eno Mountain Road or NC 86 connector study. This was phase 1 of that study. The box in the lower corner shows the 2 alignments that we studied at that time. One was a road realignment, but where we landed was actually, rather than realigning the road and creating a lot of right-of-way impacts, was creating roundabouts at Mayo and Eno Mountain Road that can work in coordination together. Obviously, these lines are just my lines, on a PowerPoint slide, not our actual conceptual studies, which I can share with you, but they're also posted on our website. So this concept was developed. We did not do any engineering on it, but we did get some preliminary cost estimates at the time. So almost 6 years ago, it looks like it was going to be about a $1.1 million project. That is very low. Maybe even low at that time, but certainly low now. The costs of transportation projects are just going up every single year. So we would have to do new cost estimates to try to figure out what this project would cost in today's dollars or future dollars. This project has not done well in terms of scoring and competing. And part of the problem is that some of the model kind of relies on average annual daily traffic count. And a lot of this problem happens at particular times of day. And so it gets a little muddy when you look at it as like an average over the course of the day. So those however, there's a lot of other projects along Orange Grove Road corridor that we may be able to couple this with and get a little traction, which I'm going to come back to a little later in the presentation tonight. Orange County does have 5 projects along Orange Grove Road that they're putting forward, and so I'm thinking that there may be a partnership there, because I certainly see this as still a really important roadway project. And also, especially if we can get bike and ped wrapped into this area, that would be super helpful. We have, multiple schools accessed from this road. We have Expedition, and then of course the high school on New Brady Brown. All right, so then the following year in 2021, the town continued to develop alternatives with the phase 2 of that study. This is when we started to look at the section of road, connecting a new section of roadway between Old 86 and New 86. The alternatives again are shown in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide. This project was scored. Once it was complete and the town adopted a preferred alignment, which is what's shown in the green line on the screen. The project was scored. However, it has not been submitted in our state prioritization process, spot 7 or spot 8. All of the projects that were submitted in spot 7 are going through some level of NCDOT's express design, which is essentially preliminary engineering in order to develop a very early cost estimate. So this project is in express design right now, which is kind of like being in engineering, but it doesn't quite, it doesn't go as far as 60% or 90% plans. It would be more like a 10% plan. This project is not funded. I do have a theory on this project that it may be more competitive if we were able to show improvements along 70A as well, which is kind of what we studied initially, but back in 2021, we were saying, should we fix 70A or should we build this new road? And what I'm starting to realize is that for the future of traffic and the transportation network, we may have to do both because 70A is still a problem. The intersection of 70A at South Churton Street is the major problem. And this project might score better if we were to address both of those together. So we'll come back to that in a little bit too, as I get into the opportunities. The next up from that list of priorities was the South Churton Street widening. That's on the left. This is everyone's favorite project in town. Some form of this project has literally been around since the 1980s. You'll remember that in 2019, NCDOT shared their preliminary plans for this corridor with us, and it was like a 4-lane divided road with a super wide median, bike and ped infrastructure, but a really typical and traditional signalized intersections through the corridor. The town board and town wasn't thrilled with those early plans, and so we asked permission to then do our own local study, which took about 2 years. To help from the MPO, lots of community input, focus groups, community surveys, design charrettes, design workshops, got a lot of participation from all the various stakeholders, and developed some alternative designs, which this board received and adopted last year. We shared those plans with NCDOT, and they're now in their sort of second phase of engineering, taking the feedback from us, looking at new traffic forecasts in the Triangle Regional Model, housing, population growth, and coming up with a new set of alternatives, which I think will be built off of our preferences, but will not be exactly the same. And that really comes down to the design year and how the traffic models shift all the time. So NCDOT has been really receptive to our preferences. They're coordinating with us on the project regularly. And I do expect to see plans back from them in October. So I'm hoping there may be an opportunity for me to get back in front of this board by the end of the calendar year or very early next year to share NCDOT's plans with you and get your feedback. Then, of course, on the right, we have Ridge Walk. This is the greenway. The construction of the dark blue line, which is the middle section, that'll be the Collins Ridge Greenway. It's being built by the developer, and then it will be turned over to the town for maintenance in the long run. The sort of royal blue color at the light is what we call phase 1, which connects downtown Hillsborough through the train station to Collins Ridge, and then the more aqua blue at the southern portion would leave Collins Ridge, go under Interstate 85 and down into to Beckett's Ridge Drive, and then connect through the existing sidewalk to Cades Creek Park. We have studied numerous alignments for this greenway. This is the one that seems to be the most feasible from a constructability and a cost standpoint. The town board determined these preferred routes last year. And now we're just sort of waiting to see when funding for construction might be available before we move on with the next phase of engineering. We have money in this year's budget to do engineering on Ridgewalk. We could start engineering Ridgewalk phase 1 right now, but unless we know when construction is going to be funded, it doesn't make sense to move too far with engineering because those permits expire after a couple of years. So we're just kind of waiting to figure out when is the best time to move that project forward. And the train station, we're continuing to work on the future train station project. What you see here on the left is a conceptual site plan, and then some renderings of what the architecture of the station is supposed to look like, which you guys have seen before. This stuff is also available on the town's website. This is a funded project, and I forgot to mention Churton Street is a funded project, right? We're not competing for funding still. The train station is also a funded project. We have developed and received town approval for the site plan. Construction plans are underway. And of course, as you know, we're awaiting North Carolina Railroad approval to move forward with our insurance and indemnification conversations, and then our preliminary engineering agreement, which is what allows us to submit our plans for their review. Our plans have been designed based on their standards. We have an agreement with Amtrak that says they'll serve the station if and when we build it. So we are making progress, but we are in the queue for being able to have the conversation with North Carolina Railroad about review, because Kannapolis and Salisbury are out ahead of us. I believe the town also will be working later this year to talk about programming the remaining portions of the train station site. I think Matt and Shannon will be leading that conversation. And there is an opportunity in there, which you guys may remember we discussed last year, about working with Orange County and other transit providers to establish a regional transfer station or a mobility hub, which Doug brought up earlier tonight. sort of near or adjacent to the train station. So projects are starting to come together, seeing this as a real transportation hub for our community and even all of the county. I think there's a lot of support for that, and the MPO staff believes that it could compete very well for funding. We're gonna come back to that in the future slide though. Okay. All right, moving on to NCDOT projects. Does anyone have any questions about those projects? Quick questions? No, keep going. All right. So I want to cover the NCDOT projects that are going on in our area. Right now that they're getting geared up for construction on the bridge that goes over the North Carolina Railroad corridor out past Home Depot. That construction is imminent, like it should be this year. And that includes sidewalks that Orange County has agreed to maintain until such a time that area where, if it was annexed, then the sidewalks would come to us. But this is the first time that the county has taken, the Board of County Commissioners have taken responsibility for maintaining a sidewalk, which is great. Big thanks to them for that, because it helps us make our connectivity goals in that area of town or outside of town. I-40 widening is under construction. Its expected completion is 2027. I-85 widening is, was originally in front of I-40, but they got reversed. That engineering is underway, but construction is not funded for I-85 widening yet. I'm hoping that we'll learn more later this year about that project getting scheduled. We also have the I-85 interchange at South Churton Street, which is a separate project, although it is scheduled to and funded for the same year as the Churton Street project, which is 2034. And then we also have the interchange out near Home Depot and Walmart, which is a Spot 8 submittal, but it's not funded yet. So one interchange is funded, one interchange is not funded. South Churton is funded, but I-85 is not funded. And then I already spoke a little bit about South Churton Street. So our portion of the project is complete. Now we are working in sort of the NCDOT realm of seeing that project through. I'm just going to show you a map here of those projects I just covered. I'll just, for the benefit of everyone in the audience and just as a reminder, this pink line in the middle, this is Churton Street coming into Hillsborough. Downtown Hillsborough is at the top of the map. This is the where my cursor is the area where Home Depot and Walmart are. This is the bridge over the railroad that I was talking about. Again, this construction is imminent this year, will be completed by 2027. I-40 widening is underway right now. That's this line down here. Its expected completion is 2027. I-85 widening is in engineering, but has no construction schedule or funding yet. And then the interchange at South Churton is funded for 2034, along with the Churton Street widening project, which is funded for 2034. And then this interchange at Home Depot is a separate project that does not have construction funding affiliated with it yet, but will be submitted for SPOT. We also have a couple other projects that are going on that are not DOT projects, but just in our area, which is the North Carolina corridor curve realignment. You guys have heard about this for a few years, which is just straightening out the curve in the track so that it's less dangerous for trains. And then the traffic separation study, which is like really probably out of date now. Many years ago, we studied as a partner with North Carolina Railroad and Norfolk Southern, the option of improving the South Nash Street trestle to be able to get bike and ped access underneath it, in exchange for closing the Bellevue trestle. So that project has not moved forward, but it still exists out there in the world of projects and sort of floats around to different, it hasn't been funded, hasn't been scheduled, but it's still a project. And the town board at that time endorsed the idea that the Bellevue crossing could be closed if the West Hill crossing and South Nash Street crossing were improved. Kathleen, do you remember? I think
I
you
do, but
were involved in that.
The caveat at that point was the first responders concerned about the trucks being able to access
Yeah.
West Hillsborough, that one, the West Hill was what gave them quicker access. and that they had to have
Yeah.
that.
It was not, it's not an expensive project, let me put it that way. It meant actually like replacing and changing the grade for like, I think like almost a mile of track, if I'm remembering
It was
correctly. So I don't see it moving forward. I'm just mentioning it because sometimes if you're looking at the NPO's list of projects that are being prioritized for funding, that one will still pop up from time to time. It's called traffic separation, but it wasn't, the town of Hillsborough is not the lead agency. However, we did participate in that plan.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, that was the whole thing, was the fire truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, just making sure that response times would not be negatively impacted was the town's stated. In order to endorse the project, that was one of the
No, they
stated
originally wanted
conditions.
to close both and for EMS and fire, that was not tenable for a residence. It's
That's right.
Not tenable for
No,
a board.
please.
That's right, but I will say, I get a lot of questions about the South Nash Street trestle. I do hope that someday we are
Oh,
able to see
please.
improvements made at the South Nash Street trestle because it's really dangerous right now. Okay, I'm gonna move on to Orange County's priorities. And what I mean when I say Orange County's priorities, these are projects that have been submitted by Orange County into the MPO's spot, prioritization process to compete for funding. But some of these really impact Hillsborough, and I think that this is where some of our opportunities to possibly put our projects together, we might be able to compete better for future funding. Part of what we run up against is the fact that our town limits are so sort of splotchy through some of these corridors that if you only submit the project in the town limits, it's just not quite enough to compete well against these like larger municipalities around us. Okay, so the first one is the regional transfer hub. I'm gonna also show these on a map as well. This mobility hub at the train station or adjacent to the train station is planned to be a spot 8 submittal. The MPO staff really thinks it's gonna compete well. The I-85 interchange at 70 is something we call the F-Link connector, not funded.
What are they planning to do there?
I'll show you on the map in just a second. I guess the reason I have it in this list is so you can see that we have 2 spot 8 submittals and nothing funded. So, for the sake of saving time, I'll just go to the map so I can kind of show you where we are. So the F-Link connector project, where's my cursor?
Yeah, I see what.
There
I'm
we
not
are.
sure what-
It's here, it's out here,
Yeah.
right? And the problem is that it's not a full
No,
access,
it's not.
interchange. And the idea is that there must be a better design out there to make it full access,
Well,
but it has not been engineered. So it's really a concept level project that's not funded.
okay, since that is what I use, like, that is my
Yeah.
primary thing. I mean, I know the limitations.
Yeah.
All too well, but selfishly, it's like, okay, are they planning, and if so.
That project doesn't have legs yet, and
Okay.
it's just a concept, but it is a concept that has the support of a lot of DOT staff. And DOT staff started to, and I'm specifically speaking of Chuck Edwards, he and I have talked about this project a lot. Once the Elizabeth Brady Road bypass lost the support of the town, I think Chuck started to think, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do without a bypass? That intersection is the most obvious way to get people sort of around Hillsborough and Churton Street to the northern part of the
Well,
town.
that's what I use to get around
Right.
Church Street.
So making some improvements there so that it's full access and also multimodal and a little more safe, better visibility, better signalization. That's the concept. Again, that's an Orange County project. Where was I? Okay. So US 70 modernization, do you guys remember a while back now, Nish came and presented you with the US 70 multimodal corridor study, and this board adopted or endorsed the recommendations in that study that were specific to town of Hillsborough city limits. Didn't really comment on anything outside of that, but we adopted that, and it was easy to adopt those because they had been drawn straight out of our comprehensive plan and put into that study.
So
So
our
those
70 quarter work.
and through 70 quarter and also, yeah, the connectivity plan and lots of iterations of that plan. So Orange County does have, the study is complete. No
funding has been associated with improvements along that corridor, but it is a project that they have, that they've submitted and hope to get funding for, and that would be to modernize US 70. And, modernization, is everyone sort of familiar with that term modernization as it pertains to road projects? Because, it's, it's kind of a strange term. Have you heard that before? It's basically like taking, go ahead, you wanna say it?
Remind us.
Okay.
Why?
Yeah, well, I mean, at times it can be widening, but really, what modernizations are looking at the profile of the road, thinking about things from a multimodal perspective, and then making suggestions for improvements to safety for all modes of transportation. And they can sometimes include widening or also shoulder widening.
Because that's part of the problems. There's some drop offs,
Yeah.
They've got bad intersections, they've got just some weirdness.
Yeah, and there's there's a lot of different treatments within a modernization project, but to submit a modernization project means that you're not, you can either submit a widening or a modernization. Modernization means we're not necessarily widening the road, but we are making improvements to the road for all modes of transportation. We also have the townwide signal system upgrade for Hillsborough. This was actually submitted by Orange County, I think on our behalf. That was done when Margaret was here, and I'm not exactly sure if Margaret asked Orange County to do it or if it's just a brilliant idea. Someone should have done it. So kudos to Orange County staff. This is a spot 8 submittal.
I thought we had that already. We had something done with signalization earlier, so can you refresh my memory of what we did or what?
I mean, we have studied individual or small groups of signals many times since I started here 20
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
But this would be a town-wide signalization study to look at how all the lights are working.
Oh, okay.
And also not working only in reference to each other, but through different times of day,
Right.
right? There's all kinds of smart technology out there now
Absolutely.
that can help you, your signalization timings can change based on what day of the week it is, what time of day it is, what kind of traffic you have. There's all kinds of cameras and lasers and all kinds of other things. I don't actually know a lot about what I'm talking about because I haven't done one of these studies before, but if this study moves forward, I think it would be great. This is also the type of thing that we're seeing like a lot of our neighbors invest money in because it's not as expensive as making like actual physical roadway improvements, but it can give you a lot of congestion relief. Yeah, it can be big time. Orange High School Road sidewalk. How many of you guys on the board have been asked about people walking on Orange High School Road? Okay. Just a few, right? Okay. Yeah, so that one's shown up on the map here north of town. This goes to Orange Middle School and Orange High School. Orange County does have a project for that they have submitted for, future discussions and to compete for funding, but it hasn't been engineered and it's not been funded yet. They also have the Orange Grove Road Modernization Project. This is what I was speaking to earlier when I said, hey, maybe our roundabouts could work their way into this modernization project and then we both get what we're looking for. This modernization, there's actually 4 or 5 separate projects Orange County submitted because they have a transit access sidewalk. They have a pedestrian bridge over I-40, right? Out by the high schools from, Patriots Point to Cedar Ridge. Then they also have a sidewalk project from the end of Elfins Pond to the high school. Then they have a modernizations. So these are projects that show up in different types of funding spreadsheets. And I think really what that means is just this quarter needs a lot of help. And one of the things it needs is also help with those intersections at Eno Mountain Road and Mayo. So I think working with Orange County staff and the MPO to figure out what is really the scope of this project, who all are we trying to help, and how do we put a competitive project together is an opportunity for us in the future. Other projects that sort of exist in concept only, but not in the MPO's spreadsheets yet are the 86 and 57 split north of town, which I guess I should just say this is like a recognized problem by Orange County staff. It hasn't quite made it into the project category yet, but it's something that we did analyze from a very conceptual level when we looked at the 70, corridor. Because those two projects actually need to work in conjunction with each other. And then there's also been conversations about modernizing old 86 towards Chapel Hill. That's this orange line that trails off the paper. They've talked a little bit about modernizing new 86, although I haven't seen a project for that yet. None of that is funded. A 70A, which goes out past sports endeavors out towards the sportsplex. This was included in that 70 multimodal corridor study plan. However, Orange County hasn't submitted any specific projects on that, and I don't think that will move forward without the town kind of pushing for it, because again, that road goes in and out of city limits a couple times. Other areas of concern that have come up, especially in relation to development applications, are St. Mary's Road, Lawrence Road. I haven't seen projects come up there, but I wouldn't be surprised to see projects in the next couple of years to address those areas. And then I wanted to just spend a second talking about a little bit other progress we've made. Right now, Dustin, our public works manager, is getting ready for the Exchange Park Lane Bridge repairs. It's now a fully funded project. Construction is imminent, and this year we have been able to complete the rainy traffic calming and speed tables and have got a lot of positive feedback about that. We were able to reduce the speed limits on US 70 from 45 miles an hour to 35 miles an hour. That project is now complete, made it through the Board of Transportation, and the signs were removed at late this summer.
Oh, there's still one.
They're still there.
Is there one? Because I thought I saw one.
I saw it today.
No, I went and looked the other day. I think what's
It's
supposed
the
to happen is the 45
It's the
mile an
one
hour
with the-
signs come out.
It's the one that says how fast you're
Yeah.
going, but it says 45.
Yeah.
I know that because I drive, that is,
Okay, well, I'll let Dawn know. DOT picked up the other like normal 45 mile an hour signs, but I do think that they messed
Oh,
with
I
it.
noticed it today, actually. I was like, wait a second.
I've been.
It's on
waiting-
the west side.
I've been.
No, it's on the north side. Or, well,
You're going,
north side of the
you're
street.
going towards Mebane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been waiting for it,
Yeah.
but you can't take it because it's there, huge, you're 45.
Okay, I'll make sure that they get that one. They did remove several of the signs that were 45 mile an hour, but they missed this one.
Single 35,
It's not supposed to say 35 because at
Oh.
the town limits, it says it's 35 miles in the
but
town.
that's gonna be, that will make it in the national news for speed trap then, because it is, like I said, the 45 and there's. If you don't, if you ain't from around here, you're gonna get busted.
Yeah, you'll learn real quick what we care about in Hillsborough. We've also been able to put in additional bus shelters. Those are now complete, thanks to a partnership with Orange County. And of course, the new circulator route. I don't spend a lot of time talking about transit in these kind of presentations because we rely so heavily on the transit providers to provide transit that I don't actually know a lot about it. But I do know that we have a new circulator route that's going the opposite direction, and that's very helpful to people who use the circulator. Matt?
Well, on Exchange Park Bridge, I wish Doug was still here to hear it. MPO staff helped us out tremendously in trying to fill a funding gap with that project. Final vote of the MPO board is next week to approve that. The technical committee has already approved it, but big thanks to the MPO staff TPO staff for helping us fill almost $200,000 gap.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I had that wrong on the slide. I was thinking that vote had already happened. So that's next week. We got one more vote before it's a fully funded project. Excuse me.
TPO is tomorrow.
Okay, that one is it.
Yeah, vote for it, Mark. Carry us through the finish line. All right. And then, I don't know how many of you have noticed, but NC DOT has snuck into the town of Hillsborough in the dead of night without communicating with us and has been putting accessible curb ramps in around town, which is great. And I appreciate it, but I keep getting surprised. Like I'll just be driving down the road and I'm like, there's a new curb ramp that's going in. This is a project that,
Yes, yeah.
yeah, right near Hillsborough
Yeah,
Elementary.
I was like,
just
wait,
the
it's
other
different
day.
again.
Yeah, it's different again. They were gone for a couple years, now they're back. I really appreciate those curb ramps. It's a part of their, their goal of creating more accessible sidewalk networks. So I do appreciate that. And they told us they were gonna do it like 5 or 6 years ago. I think it was pre-COVID. And then it kind of disappeared. So I guess as funding allows is how we're seeing that come through. I just want to remind you guys, this is a slide that I showed you 4 years ago, just to remember that there's really kind of four major phases to any transportation project: the concept level, the feasibility level, which is when we do express design and develop early cost estimates. Then you have design and engineering, and finally on to construction. I did note a couple years ago that for projects that are bike and ped, that we're not likely to get state or federal, or state funding through the MPO for. When we're competing for other grants, they're oftentimes looking for shovel-ready projects, which means you have to get through the engineering part, oftentimes on the town's dime, before you can compete for larger sources of funding. And then these next few slides, I don't need to go through it. I'm trying to get you to hone in on just how the colors, right? So when I was here 4 years ago, most of these projects were living either in the concept or early feasibility stage. We were just setting out on feasibility and express design. We have now moved many of these projects into the engineering phase, although we haven't seen a lot more funded. And that's a big problem. That's a big takeaway. DOT doesn't have a lot of extra money. There's a lot of needs. There's a lot of projects in our entire region that we're competing with. And so that is, we're not likely to see a big infusion of funding just, become available. But what we're trying to do is keep moving these projects along and then work through the MPO to prioritize the ones that have the greatest benefit to our community. This is again, just some of those projects that I covered earlier. You can see that we're moving 2 forward into spot 8. That's that mobility hub again and the townwide signal system. But most of these projects that have been put forward by Orange County, and some of the older projects, really haven't moved into engineering yet. So there's an opportunity there to do some engineering. And then the last projects, again, most of these are Orange County projects. They live either at the concept level or just within the community as a concept. So like this Orange High School Road Sidewalk project, like I think a lot of people know that this is a need, but it just hasn't really moved forward yet. And so with the county accepting responsibility for sidewalk on New 86, that opens up the opportunity to have conversation about some of these areas that we know are like really key safety concerns. So this one is your brain on transportation. These are the maps I just showed you. I have just recently started attending as the primary member of the MPO, and I'm still trying to catch up to speed because Matt's been doing this work for years. And so what I needed to do to try to wrap my head around all of this is create a geodatabase with all of these projects, which we now have in our online geodatabase, and I can give you access to. Actually, you can pull it up, and I'm slowly going through and getting my spreadsheet of information about what's funded, what's not funded, where are we in the process, put into the attribute table of this geodatabase. So it will be available, something that you can reference as we move forward in the future. Yeah, and I guess what I would say is that, and I mean, these are all the projects that are in some form moving forward. And where I see the biggest hole that I see is 70A. 70A is a real need, all the way from South Churton Street past Sports Endeavors, past Tuscarora and Elizabeth Brady Road and out towards the Sportsplex. And we've got new residential neighborhoods coming in out there. And so there'll just be increased pressure for people to be able to get into town, or at least to get safely to Elizabeth Brady Road so that they can get onto Riverwalk. This is kind of honing in on the south part of town. Again, that sort of shows that hole where 70A is. I guess what I would suggest is that, one opportunity is to consolidate those Orange Grove Road projects to try to get some traction there. 70A I really need to work with Orange County to see if we could expand the scope of that 86 connector project to include looking at this portion of 70A, maybe set the scope from the Sportsplex or the Habitat neighborhood. What's the name of that neighborhood? I'm sorry. Almond Village, back towards Churton Street and to get like at least a cross section developed for how that road might look and what kind of right of way impacts it would have. As well as I know that there's utilities out there that we would need to consider. And then I guess the other hole that pops out for me is just this connectivity on New 86 or NC Highway 86. We do have some existing pieces of sidewalk out there that were developed, under our sidewalk ordinance, but they don't connect. And with the interchange, potentially moving forward, we want to make sure, of course, that we get sidewalks on that bridge and that those sidewalks connect to sidewalks that people can use to get into town and get to Riverwalk and other destinations, as well as connecting out to Hampton Point, the Hampton Point Apartments, and then going south to that new sidewalk over the rail corridor and all the way down to Waterstone Drive.
So when you're talking about those sidewalks on that, is it, are you envisioning it as part of the 86 connector or separate?
I'm not sure yet. I mean, I guess my thought process is, wouldn't the project compete better if you showed greater numbers of improvements and less accidents because of the project? But I need to work with Doug and his staff to see if that assumption is correct, because I'm still so new at this. I'm not sure if you make the project too big, like too expensive, does that actually make it score worse? Like where is that?
Sweet spot.
Where's the sweet spot? So yeah, that's kind of where I am with it. But I just wanted to note, this is from our comprehensive plan. You can see from the orange and the red, again, orange is Orange County jurisdiction, red is us, black is existing sidewalks, that those three areas I talked about, Orange Grove Road, 78 and New 86, are all areas that we have to work with Orange County to move those projects forward. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to not just coordinate and participate, but actually join forces. I think that might be something that we need to figure out how to do. And then again, our existing priorities, as far as I understand from you guys and past conversations we've had, we want to keep moving that future train station, move Ridgewalk whenever we think that we have funding available, continue to work with DOT on the South Churton Street, which is funded for 2034. And then try to move the 86 connector. And I've already mentioned the opportunity several times. Some other ones that I'd like to just remind you that we talked about are Rainy Avenue sidewalk. Orange County is also doing a trails and bike and pedestrian plans. And so there's this idea that we could connect Hillsborough to the towns of Chapel Hill and Carborough, possibly even Mebane someday. And so I continue to participate in those plans. But honestly, if we build out our recommendations to our town limits, then it's really kind of the county's responsibility to figure out how to connect us. And that's the end of the slideshow. But to kind of go back, I want to answer any questions that you have, but then I want to also just check and make sure that I am understanding what I think our priorities are and see how you guys feel about those opportunities and whether or not you want to try to move anything forward.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's actually really helpful to have all of that compacted into one presentation to help focus attention. So.
Yeah, and I also have a giant spreadsheet, Excel format spreadsheet that I wasn't going to put in your packets because it's hard to read, but I'm happy to email this out to you so that you guys can just keep in mind that it's I'm still working on it, but I could make a SharePoint file for it or something.
If we can have access to GIS maps, probably too, because these things come up in conversations a lot for us in our execution of our duties as elected officials. So it'd be helpful to be able to visualize some of those projects. So,
yeah.
On behalf of the board, let's just do all this.
Yeah.
Questions?
No, this is just really well done, and I echo everything we say, having it in one spot and having access to the data, and that's great. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so right now I have the polyline files, all of the scope of each project is in a geodatabase, and I also have an Excel spreadsheet with all of the information. What I need to do is get those two to talk to each other. I'm hoping to do that in the next month or so, but certainly once that happens, I'm happy to share that as a published map, and then that way you can look at the attribute table, or for anyone who prefers Excel, I can just give you the Excel.
I really like that, and this is going back to, because I'm not there yet, but I'm almost ready to ask all municipalities for their land use map transportation for the housing. Because we want to knit together, not as a planner document, but for a policy and, top line policy, collaborative document, so that we, as a region, we can see those adjacencies, we can see how things from one jurisdiction into another's. So what you're talking
Yeah.
about, that's.
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
if you just, like, we need people to talk, like, go back to, I know smart growth feels like it's a word that was popular 20 years ago, but it's actually still the really important concept, which is you need to build the housing and employment bases along the transportation systems.
Exactly.
Right.
And we have to be able to visualize the layering into getting this. That's what we're trying to, that's the goal.
Yeah, I would also like the spreadsheet because with the MPO packets that come out. The way the packets do for the MPO, there's this a couple of page document with a brief summary. And then links to all the attachments. It's not uncommon to have 20 or 30 attachments. So each MPO meeting is, 400 or 500 pages of information. So to be able to, and you look by project number in these things, so I need quick reference to the
Yeah.
project number so I can search all
I
those
included that.
attachments. Thank you, for things that reference those.
Yeah, I have the project number and the spot number and the step number because different attachments go by different numbers from the MPO, so they're all included in there. It's crazy. So we are, the MPO is gonna be moving forward with prioritization and also working on the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So I do think it would be good. I don't know if it's necessary, Matt, tell me how you think about for the board to just kind of like readopt the priorities of like which projects, or do we need that for?
It's always helpful if there's a change to have something on the record for us to point back to and say, these are our adopted priorities. That helps us with the TPO and their processes.
So you need a motion that these are their adopted priorities? I move,
Priorities and opportunities, I think.
I move
Okay.
that
I'd
we,
include, yeah, definitely include their.
Yeah.
yes, I move that these reflect our opportunities and priorities.
Kathleen, do we have a second?
Sorry.
Thank you, Rob. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Make it happen.
Thank you so much, I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Senator.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item D, Communities on the Move funding request to continue providing programming and services to the Fairview community and Hillsborough residents. Given the time that it is, I would normally say, let's stand up and move around for 5 minutes, but I'm not sure this will be a very lengthy conversation. So with your permission, I would like to, let's pursue this topic. So you guys can come on up and I'll start the introduction. So I'm gonna present this, I'll kind of tee it up, and then when Eric returns, I'll refer to him. So we're all really familiar with the great programming that goes on at Fairview, and we've all been kind of given the heads up that, when the SNAP Ed funding was lost, that it directly impacted these programming opportunities in Fairview. And I think most of us have gone to numerous of the Fairview days. We've seen these things. We come to the Fairview Community Watch meetings. So we're all intimately familiar with the program. So when we heard that, these 4 programs were at risk, severe risk, we Eric and I met with all these lovely people. We talked about ideas, and Eric has kind of translated all that conversation into a practical approach with a heavy dose of reality check with where we are from our funding situation, which is we're deficit funding. So anything that we do going forward, we have to take away or cancel something else and do that back. So just to reiterate, there are 4 main programs that are impacted. The Fairview Youth in Action Internship, the Active Living Support and Technical Assistance, Fairview Community Garden, and Women on the Move, and some here coming back. So they're on a federal fiscal year. So this impact runs out the end of September. So starting August 1 is when the funding.
Should be October 1st.
What did I say?
August.
August, sorry.
Yeah.
So the information is in the packet. While we're waiting on Eric to come back, does the board have any questions for folks who might be able to answer any technical questions about the programs or the dollar amounts?
Yeah, question for
Go ahead.
Bob, but not so much about the about the programs themselves.
Sure,
So I don't
yeah,
know if we want
let's-
to get to that part or.
That's fair game, sure.
Well, I'm guessing it's forgot is, I spoke to Judith about how this would actually happen as you're currently funded through UNC and can the town, if approved, how does, like, I know y'all would find out if we approve it, how to do it, but how does that?
Eric, we did have that conversation, Eric. Megan's questions about kind of the funding mechanism. Can the town transfer or pay the university to provide these services as opposed to Fairview Community Watch or, the funding mechanism, if the board were to decide to proceed with this? Is that it?
Yeah, it was just,
Any encumbrances for transferring from the town to the university?
I'm not prepared to answer that tonight. Let me get back. There was some conversation that we had. That indicated that we could, but I'll just need to research if.
and that was, I mean, as I said, like, if we approve it, I'm sure we'll find a way to do it, but I was just like. They're not a 501c3, there's not all these other ways to make it easier, so.
Do you recall we talked about, Fairview Community Watch is a 501c3 and Habitat is also a partner in this mix too, so I think we talked about that as a conduit, but. So,
My name's Molly DeMarco. I think I know most of you, but I just thought I'd share my name. The UNC does have a designation that allows us to serve generally as a nonprofit. We've received all sorts of different funding sources, of course, federal funding. We also have a subcontract with Habitat, and we've done contracts with municipalities as well. Through different templates and contracts and subcontracts.
good to know, thank you. Other questions about the programs?
I actually had I was trying to wrap my head around some of the issues, because Fairview serves both town and county and the restrictions that we have. How do we do this and not run afoul of the restrictions that we don't have a choice about?
Good question. I know we talked about that issue too, and I know we recently approached or had a meeting with the county about that. And do you have any feedback on kind of what the county's thinking is on what their share might be?
Sure, well, absolutely. So, we did meet with Assistant County Manager, Ben Hagan, Caitlin, and talked about that. We presented the same information to her office that we presented to y'all. I guess we'd be happy to provide input on how we thought the breakdown should be. They were interested, of course, in finding out how this meeting goes tonight and what y'all might decide, but I do feel like we were given some indication that they're understanding of our need and interested in this. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, yeah, I'm glad to hear that, but and certainly what we, in terms of the funding request. What I don't want to do is attract the wrong kind of attention if we cross the line, because then we're not really helping. So on the I've seen the numbers, but what percentage is actually, for the town residents, in town limits, so that we don't incur the wrong kind of attention. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not quite following you about what.
So state law says we cannot spend money outside of town limits for residents of town outside of town limits. Fairview encompasses town and county. So when we look at the numbers, that includes town and county, which actually puts us, as I understand, unless Bob tells me I'm making up things, we're at risk of spending.
I think we run into this issue before
Yeah.
where we have to look at like OCIM, I think.
Like a percentage or prorated,
Somehow to make it proportional to our contribution, proportional to population served within the.
Exactly. And that I was not able to I saw like 6 months, full year, but I wasn't able to parse out well, what is that prorated so that we don't invite, you know, a legal challenge because we have violated statutes?
Can I add some context that, so, and I don't recall if we talked about this, or was this the conversation I had with Jennifer Player at Habitat? About looking at the map, and we can tease out how many households or.
Yeah, I know we can,
Things
but I
like
just
that, and
put.
we can't, but I don't know what that percentage is. So I apologize if that wasn't with you, but that was with Jennifer, but that was something that, yeah, we had thought about.
We certainly have access to that data and could figure out that percentage. We also have, programmatic data from the last several years with addresses of participants, so we could even plug in like expected of our service area versus actual. So we could provide any data there that would be helpful. And in the packet, we did sort of provide, it's a small cutout of a map that shows generally our service area.
Right, but it's not town, and that's where, because the statutes, it's just, my brain doesn't work. I'm not able to extrapolate on my own of your ask. What is the proportion of that is attributable to town residents and town, yeah.
Eric.
The funding source is going, I mean, the primary manager of these services and the agreement with Ford is the Fairview Community Watch. So if the town's doing this contribution, if that's what we decide to do however the support goes, it's supporting the Fairview Community Watch. Commissioner Ferguson's view of what might be Fairview and the county might be different than someone else's. I think if we went ahead and like listed out the individual parcels, it's a relatively small portion of whatever that neighborhood is. Also, I don't think the Fairview Community Watch is so restrictive that they're gonna ban people for participating if they don't live in Fairview. And I think if you look at the abstract that I wrote, it was done intentionally to mention Fairview's the primary customer because it's surrounded in the community centers right there in the middle. But there's people from outside that live in Hillsborough who participate, so it's not just a Fairview only. So I think the number of units you're talking about from accounting is just getting too granular and making it, I don't think there's a risk.
So you
That's
answered,
just my opinion.
well, you answered the bottom line thing was avoiding the risk that I love this, and I got spooked that there was gonna be that risk of violating statutes, but if y'all are town manager Eric and Bob attorney, if y'all are happy, I'm happy.
Obviously, Bob's got the legal aspect and does it meet the public purpose limitation, and the answer to me would be yes, but his opinion counts.
I actually think it's probably pretty low risk.
And so y'all
Given the
are,
purpose of it and the fact that it does serve the community. And I mean, if we know that there's enough density there that we feel pretty comfortable, then I think you're safe.
then that's all I need to hear.
But there are two parts to the equation. What should we ask the county to chip in, because they're our county residents?
So do you currently receive any funding from the county for the programs that you've been offering?
No, I didn't think so.
Have you ever asked them?
We have not, and we I guess are in the belief that like
Well-
a lot of the programmings are benefiting the town and the county, and a lot of the.
Not actually accurate, because the original intern program that Community Watch and Fairview Ford funded, the county ended up adopting. And
Oh, the
funded
park monitoring.
the park monitoring.
That's
That
true.
was, I think
That
it
was-
was a little different than.
It was a whole different, but it was an example of a
Yeah.
Fairview
And then the
initiative.
county took
And the
it.
county took it over. So there is precedent of county support, but they took it over as opposed to funding.
Yeah, I was just curious, because I think that
Yeah.
playing a little bit too, but I encourage you to ask for some.
Yeah.
Nature too.
Good thought.
Eric, go ahead.
Oh, and I just want to follow up, and ask the assistant manager to correct me. So, Matt and I met with, county manager, assistant county manager, following up, and they wanted to be able to have a discussion, and they're, aware of like, the immense impact the program is having. You know, I just want to be very general because I don't want to misspeak because I'm not fluent with their budget and what their funding sources are at all. I think they identified out of the 5 programs that are being provided currently, I think there was one of the programs, I can't remember which one it was, they felt that they were going to look into see if they could help provide funding in that one specific area. There may be others that they can do. But anyway, I think it's always best if you're planning to have lower expectations about, what you might be getting funding and maybe get surprised.
And Molly, do I recall from our conversation with Eric that you were pursuing numerous other grant opportunities simultaneously? And I think the analogy I used was with our Chantal, recovery. We're pursuing insurance and FEMA, all these different things, and we will accept whichever one can pay first. But can you speak to that?
Oh, ad nauseam, you probably don't want to hear all that, but between June and December, when we have 4 grants due, we'll have submitted 15 proposals for different funding. We're also working with Congress because this is a national program. $550 million was slashed when the new administration came in. And we're also working with the General Assembly to see if they can provide bridge funding. And then that's where I'm talking about like $11 million. We're just one of 9 agencies that's provided these funds. So, and then we're also working with different philanthropies about how they could fund us or our whole state allocation for SNAP-its. So we've been doing a lot of here.
Have we heard anything, because there are, around the country, this is where angel investors, individual philanthropic families, individual people with philanthropic bent. This community does have those in there. Have they been engaged? Have we, has there been any outreach of really publicizing to those communities? This is where we need community help. I know that the community, I'm gonna say the day-to-day is aware, but from a angel funder, private funder, that.
Well, so I'm sure that most of you realize that the Research Triangle Park area is the hardest hit in terms of science and research dollars that have been cut. And then, of course, we have, NPR here as well. So we just applied to Z Smith Reynolds. They got over 300 applications and we did not get those funds.
Well, they do February and August are their dates. So they have a funding cycle.
Yes, I know we put one in. I'm just saying, I'm sure there are things we have not tapped, but there's a lot of need out there.
There absolutely is. And part of the reason why I'm asking is also secondarily to those who are watching this meeting. This community is always prided on supporting Fairview and communities of color. And this is the time where we need individuals to help in this area. So that there's 2 reasons why I'm asking. One, whether you had access to like GrantMaker and some of those tools. And secondly, it's a plea to the community that this is a real need and we need community support. And they have been, we certainly have that, but this is a whole new level.
So may I ask the board, is there interest in providing short-term bridge funding? Per Eric's recommendation for the next 6 months while we figure out, what the next budget cycle looks like, what the grant opportunities might be and other funding sources.
Personally, I think that this program is too important for this community to not put some funding towards it. I'm not exactly sure of the exact number. Eric, you mentioned 5 programs, but there's only the 4, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. For some
okay,
reason, I was thinking they were providing 5, but maybe it was 4.
All right, so if anybody else has any other ideas on an amount, but would like to see us approve some.
So
for the
perhaps
program.
proceed to ask Eric to put something together for the October meeting and with the understanding that unless Eric can come up with something to cut somewhere else, this will come out of the fund balance.
Right.
Everybody
Well,
comfortable with that?
Yeah.
I would like to, I'd like to explore, but I'm jittery. I have to admit, I'm very, I want us to find a way to provide some funding. And I've shared with Kevin, I am very jittery on our financial position. We're so close to the beginning of the year and we haven't come into tornado season. We still have hurricane season. I am jittery, so I would like to hear. I'd like to hear from Eric. I want to put I want to be able to provide some funding. I'm not confident right now we can do the asks without hearing more and seeing what the costs are in our service deliveries of. I don't want to say basics because this is so important. But I want to see what those trade-offs, the hard trade-offs are.
Do you mean if we were to cut something to make this funding available
Yeah.
as opposed to fund balance?
Well, I'm open to fund balance to a certain point, but I am jittery because I'm worried we're dipping uncomfortably into our fund balance, and I remember our projections are 2 and 3 year projections where it looked like we were skating on such tiny fund balances, and we're not talking about the Chantals happening in those years. What I don't want to do is, with good intentions, put us in a position where we are risking serving our town for like, what happens if the entire public works or that kind of thing. So, I just want to have a better understanding of, what it looks like on that fund balance picture if we pull it from fund balance and the implications thereof, as well as what would we cut.
Okay, so maybe the direction is to ask Eric to come back October 13th with a proposal and variations on where the funding comes from and for how long. And I think we talked about, making quarterly payments rather than doing as a lump, and we had several variations on that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay,
So not committing to anything tonight, but asking Eric to come back with a plan and an analysis of what that means to our fund balance, or
With the intention that it truly is we see beyond just this program, which I want desperately to support. But what are, so we,
got it.
yeah,
Thank you. Evelyn.
I feel the same way she does. I do not want to touch the fund balance because you don't know what we're gonna be facing. And I do not want the Exchange Club cut any more than the $10,000. They're the only ones that wrote a thank you note for what they got. And the others are important. Everything on here is important, but everything we spend extra other than what the balance, somebody's gonna have to, we don't wanna raise taxes for this, for instance. There's no way that we've already raised taxes once. We've got the stormwater issue that people are mad about. And everything is important. Fairview is very important. I've worked with Fairview since I've been on the board a long time. And then when Kathleen comes along, I let Kathleen do it because they got so many people, you couldn't get them in the substation. So it's not that I'm against you, it's just that you have to think about the other people who might not want to raise, this could cause a tax increase, but I don't want to bother the fund balance. I've always been opposed of raising the fund balance because you don't know who thought we were gonna have the storm, not really flood and arrow that we had.
So you would want to make sure that Eric comes back in October with options that use fund balance and options that don't use the fund balance.
Don't use fund balance.
Is that acceptable?
It's acceptable to me, that's fine.
And Eric,
Yeah, give me just a second here. Okay. Let me go through a few things as far as adding some context, and I appreciate the fiscal diligence of the board and being concerned about the savings. As of today, we have $13.5 million in savings.
Okay.
The $45,000 they're asking for, and then the mayor said I was making a recommendation to fund this. I was not making a recommendation to fund it, saying if the board wants to do that. I have been careful since day one here, is like, I don't make recommendations on nonprofits. That's the board's venue. It's a policy choice if you want to do it. That represents 0.3% of your fund balance
you.
allocation. So if the board wants, if you really want me to cut it out of general fund operations, we'll do that, but I would just really rather not spend hours trying to figure out who these people's budgets that I'm gonna go cut when it's 0.3% of what we've got now. Out of the $13.5 million that we had, going into the year, we're gonna lose several $1 million, or more, but still, even if we're talking about $10 million, some of the reasons that the fund balance is so high is we made a shift in the multi-year plan. We were gonna pay cash for the 86 North facility, which was great, but then we worried about what we actually put in the budget message for those that read it, like, what if we have a big disaster? Let's go ahead and fund this, and I hated to be right on something like that, but the timing was right, so that's why if the board is supportive of doing a bridge to help them out, $45,000 compared to $13 million, I'm not gonna lose any sleep over that small amount, so
That's.
I apologize if that was pretty long.
That was just really, really helpful because 0.3 is statistically insignificant. I can support that fund balance very easily.
okay, so any other direction to provide Eric as he sets about this task? Sorry to give you another fence.
No problem. Can I just run through quickly? So I appreciate the assistant manager sending in text, and Bob and I looked at it, just talking about, we're pretty confident about the legality of being able to have an agreement to have services provided in the community similar to what we do. But want to go back and confirm when we, not in the meeting and trust in memory that we can do this. I'll get with usually Josh Fernandez, our management budget analyst, is usually the one I think who drafts up the agreements for the community reinvestment opportunities. And so we can get that drafted in addition to getting that question answered, have the budget staff prepare a budget amendment for the amount for going for the 6 months or the 2 quarters through March, and just bring that all at the meeting. And if it's super simple and it seems like there's not a major problem, we'll just put it on the consent agenda. If the board sees or thinks of anything's concerned, you're welcome to pull it off. Or if we see anything that's of a concern, then we'll put it on the regular agenda. So those are my thoughts, but please feel free to read correct.
Love it.
Great. Good.
That would be better than doing it now.
Right, I think there's consensus. We don't need to vote on anything else. Okay, you guys have any questions?
Just thank you all, and I'm happy to follow up with any more information.
Thank you.
If anything falls into your lap between now and then, let us know.
Yeah, certainly.
Oh, just to say via emails, if you can send me the information of the organization, just email it to me tomorrow or next day about your organization, and make sure that I've got, you're talking about who we would be sending the funds to, just so we can go back and double check and make sure everything that I've got the right organization or other examples of agreements sort of like that, and that'll just help me do my due diligence.
Absolutely, Eric, happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
About that.
What's that?
I just had a comment that I wanted to add.
Sure.
At our last meeting, I mentioned that I had gone to a presentation about SNAP cuts that will be happening, and just to remind this board and to the people that are listening is that we're gonna have a lot more difficult conversations like this. This is just the first of many from the federal cuts that are gonna happen, and due to SNAP for one of them, but many other things.
So, yeah, the push for that's happening, pushing what his you've gotten federal help down to local is insane, but.
Yeah, by design.
Oh,
the
yeah.
federal spending. Okay. Okay, I tell you what I'd like to do. Let's do very brief committee updates. And then, we have a closed session to do after this.
Next one to close section.
No,
Oh, you got something else?
No, not close, not yet for closed session, or we could just put up all the updates for the next. one.
Oh, all right.
So what's the pleasure? What, you want to go through the updates right quick and then break?
I don't, and
Right, okay, so here are the updates that I know that we have. The first one is, Tourism Development Authority. Maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking the other meeting that it was in. We just had, some funding that was asked, for Flush Fest and, which we approved, and then also, the Arts Council, uproar ended up needing a little bit more, infusion of funds, which we approved because it brought so much to the area. So. I didn't miss anything. I totally forgot to write notes on the TA.
There's another one.
I was trying to, the Arts Council, Gracie.
I'm blanking.
Oh, there was a cost share between tourism and,
Oh, for the alliances, tinsel
yes,
and traditions.
yes, that was the other. Sorry about that.
Rob, did the Climate Council?
No, it's, not yet.
Oh, that was on the 16th. Kathleen, partnership to end homelessness.
We did meet, so a few things that are happening with partnership. One, the COC is out of compliance with what HUD is looking for in terms of the leadership organizational structure. So part of the HUD technical assistance is addressing that. So the leadership team is, and the MOU is going to undergo some significant changes. Don't yet know what that will look like, but, the emphasis on life-threatening homelessness lived experience, what that looks like, and as well as that composition of the leadership team being more representative of those served, these service providers, more in line with what, and HUD's got, designated, representations to choose from as far as, or representative, what they want that picture to look like to better represent those who are being served. So, I don't have a timeline for that, but that is in the works. It will be, it's gonna be within the year or less. What that means for the elected officials, we don't yet know. I have some hunches, but I don't know. But more on that as that unfolds.
Thank you. So, I have a Triangle West TPO meeting tomorrow, but last week the rail subcommittee met, and that is a group of representatives from municipalities that are impacted by rail, current or future rail, for both Triangle West as well as Campo. So, I was not able to be there in person. I participated remotely, spent part of the meeting kind of going over all the main different concepts about rail, intercity rail versus light rail, versus passenger rail. And then, we talked about, kind of the different funding implications, cost models, how to prioritize the work on the different segments of the kind of the big, plan for rail and, future studies for rail. So this is very interesting. And, that's all I have to report. And Megan, did you do upper?
Yeah.
River Basin?
We had a meeting last week. We discussed the draft rules that are being put together by the UNRBA in conjunction with DWR, the Division of Water Resources. The two organizations are working together to kind of go through some of the discrepancies between what one organization would like, or the other one, and trying to work together to come up with a comprehensive plan. So, October 21st, the UNRVA is, hopefully we'll see the final version that we'll vote on to go forward in the process. One of the things from the meeting that definitely perked my interest was it seemed that reverse osmosis seemed to be off the table as a solution, being just costing too much for the return, what we can get. And then Terry and I spoke for a little, Terry Hackett and I spoke for a little bit after the meeting. It sounded like they wanted to come perhaps after this October approval that we have would be to kind of go through that, I think, and present to the board. I don't know if he's talked to you, Eric, about coming for Matt, about presenting here at the board, to give us an update.
It's probably going to be pushed until after the new year.
Oh, okay.
Until things settle with the UNRVA.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Randy. Okay, so in the interest of our time, how about we save our other additional reports to the next meeting?
I've got a couple things because I will not be at the next meeting.
Okay, how about you go ahead and then we'll.
Okay,
Hold on.
first, just a quick thing, the next meeting I will be at National Association of Regional Councils. There is, more discussion of what we talked about. It's that integration, transportation, housing, planning. But we're also looking at policy, at a lot of focused policy advocacy of federal, state, regional levels. Also, just as an update of ALC, what we did was actually refresher of ALC. So ALC, if you have not participated, I don't think y'all have, which I highly recommend through the UNC School
Advanced leadership.
and core.
Court, yeah.
So it's based, the training is all based on leadership, the leadership challenge. Joy Javits does the, as I say, speaker coaching. Joy, don't be listening. She is extraordinary in the work she does. You get a personal coach after you complete the coursework. If you have not participated, I highly recommend it. It's a nominal fee because it's picked up by outside philanthropy. It's extraordinary. And we have representatives, it's been going on 13 years, and we have elected officials that were in that inaugural class, still active in service, and it was a nice blend all the way up to the last cohort. So I encourage that, and the Alliance has their meeting tomorrow night. That's it for right now.
Great, thank you. Okay, entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Kathleen? Second. Thank you, Rob. In favor? Any opposed? Okay, we'll take a little 5-minute break and stretch our legs. Break.